Should you buy, sell, or hold? Tonight, the Willis Report is kicking off a special user's guide to the spring real estate market, answering all your questions. Whether you're trying to buy or list a home or simply upgrade your living space, we've got a whole week's worth of expert advice. Tomorrow, an insider's tips to snagging the best mortgage. And later in the week, HGTV's power broker and staging expert Mike Aubrey is here with some great money-saving strategies. But tonight, we're kicking things off with a roundtable of experts on the status of today's housing recovery. Mark Fleming, chief economist for First American Financial, Rick Sharga, executive vice president of Auction.com, and Fox Business's very own Cheryl Casone. Welcome to all of you. Great to have you here. Rick, I'm going to start with you. You know, a lot of people out there say the market's on fire. It's going great, gangbusters out there. You are a little more cautious. Why?
I think we're going to see a good spring selling season. I don't think we're going to see a huge boom in housing over the course of the next few months. We have some pent-up demand, but I think when all the dust settles this year, we're going to look at numbers that are very similar to what we saw in 2014. So okay, but not great.
Okay, but not great. And what's the reason behind that? I mean, I hear a lot of people say that they just don't have the income to be able to afford a down payment. Are people cash-strapped?
I think part of the problem is people needing the money to come up with a down payment, even with some of these low down payment plans that are available. What we've seen is home prices go up over the last few years. We haven't seen wage growth in general keep up with that, and it's harder to get a loan. So you have low inventory, you have relatively weak demand, you have tight credit. All of that suggests you're not going to have a really big increase in home sales.
Now, Mark, you disagree. You think we're, at the precipice, maybe of a boom. Why?
Well, I don't know about a precipice of a boom, but I think we have to segment the market, obviously. A lot of what Rick mentioned has to do with the first-time home buyer having enough money for a down payment, et cetera. But most of the home sales market is actually existing homeowners. And they're not bringing their homes to market. They're not listing their homes on the supply side because they're underwater or they have insufficient equity, and that's really constraining demand, and that's why we see house prices rising. But it's good news in that it's rising less and less quickly, and so the relationship of growing incomes to growing house prices isn't going to get too much further out of whack.
All right, we've got a long way to go here. Cheryl, what are you hearing in the marketplace? Because you're talking to people all the time.
Yeah, and I really talk to the folks at Zillow quite often, and their market analysis has been fascinating to watch. Because if you look at Zillow in this most recent report, they say real estate is local. Of course it is. And, the question I always get, I'm sure you do too, is best cities that I should buy or sell in. Well, they came up with a list, and I want to show you first the top 5 sellers markets. This won't surprise you, but the dynamics are changing just a little bit. San Jose, San Francisco, but Denver, Seattle, Dallas, Fort Worth, for selling in those markets, those bottom 3, 4, and 5, Denver, Seattle, and Dallas, that's a turnaround. Those markets for sellers are actually gaining ground, in particular Dallas. There used to be a lot of great deals in Dallas, Fort Worth. That is changing. And then on the buy side, if you're going to buy somewhere, this is even better. Philadelphia for buyers is still number 1. There's, obviously that's going to be a neighborhood situation. Chicago, Cleveland, Miami, and Providence. Miami, I think, is interesting as far as top 10. It surprised me too because you still have a lot of surplus and inventory, in particular in the condo market. And as a previous guest mentioned, 85% of the market is existing home sales, and that's the big key for this market. Those existing home sales, you've got to get the millennials into those existing homes so that the boomers can get out and downsize. But until we get that shift happening in a meaningful way, you're not going to see that housing recovery. But it's better, and it really is. It's really changing pretty quickly.
I agree. Well, I think you're making a good point here, and I want to ask the entire panel here, starting with you, Rick. What's your big advice to people out there who may want to get in, who may want to sell? I mean, we haven't even addressed the seller side of the market. I know a lot of people out there would like to unload that ball and chain. What do you tell them?
I think now's a good time to be a seller. I think in most of the country, it's a seller's market because, as Mark pointed out a few minutes ago, there's simply not enough inventory out there to meet current demand. So it is a good seller's market. Advice to seller, though, is don't get too greedy because just because there's not a lot of inventory doesn't mean people are going to overpay grossly. And that'd be the advice for the buyers. First, get your financial house in order before you go buy a house to live in. And don't overpay. Don't get sucked into that trap of getting into a bidding war and overpaying for that asset.
All right, Mark, to you, because you've had some interesting numbers people who are underwater. We've seen that grow a little bit. What would you tell people who are they really want to sell that house, get the best price they can? What do they need to know right now?
I think Rick gives very good advice in terms of pricing your home well for sale. The point is, for first-time home buyers, access to credit is key. To bring those millennials into the market, first, everything is unaffordable if you can't get a loan. So first and foremost, being able to qualify for a loan, and once you do that, looking at your circumstances and buying smartly. I think we have to get away from what happened in the housing bubble when we were sort of thinking of it as a financial investment. Now it's about shelter over your head, most importantly.
Well, and let me tell you, though, here's how I feel. If I'm not making money on this thing and I'm spending a third of my income on this, I'm not going to be happy. It's got to provide some bang to the bunk. Cheryl, your last word on advice.
Mine's a little bit different. I believe in good old-fashioned sweat equity, and we really have seen, in particular with the existing home sales market, there's still a little bit of a glut in some key markets. Don't be afraid to go in and actually do that renovation. You got tons of TV shows that'll tell you how to do it. And also, the internet is a fabulous thing now. There are so many websites that are out there to help you to do the renovation. Find a good contractor. Find the right home. It's not a scary thing, and it can be fun. And, man, I tell you, the financial payoff down the road can be incredible if you're willing to do the work on the renovation.
I like that. Before we go, Mark, I want to turn to you. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about getting the money, right? That's been one of the big issues in this marketplace. Right. Can you find the lender? Can you get the money you need? What's changed? How are things different in your view, quickly?
Well, I think realistically, the most constraining factor is creditworthiness and credit scores. Today, more so than in times past, you have to have a good credit score in order to be eligible for a loan these days. And so credit is really tight or tighter than it has been historically in the past because of that. So only those who have shown or proven a track record of an ability to pay their obligations are eligible today.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for coming on. You guys did a great job. Mark, Rick, and Cheryl, appreciate your time.
Thank you.